Good morning, Shavua Tov. We learned today some of the Torah and Mussar words of Rav Yitzchak about whom we spoke last week at length, also known as Rav Yitzchak from Peterburg, Rav Yitzchak in Peterburg. Although he was in Peterburg, as we remember, only for 10 years, well, 16 years, you apologize, but 16 years, it's a long time, but it seems that it made a remark, and as we spoke, he published his first halachic book after he already left Peterburg, but many answers in this responsive book do reflect the life and the questions as he saw them in Peterburg. So I would like to learn with you first one answer from his responsive book, from his halachic book, and then, Bezat Hashem, if time would permit, I would also like us to learn some of his words as a preparation for Elul, for Rosh Hashanah, for Yamim Noraim, which I also think we can benefit from. So I begin with this first source, so this is source Aleph. So from the pre-Yitzchak, from his halachic sefer, and it's a tshuva. He gave the title B'din Maaser Kesafim, on the halacha of the tithe of Maaser Kesafim, giving 10th of one's incomes for charity. ולאיזה צורך מותר להשתמש בו. So for what goals, for what ends are you allowed to donate your Maaser Kesafim? That's a very common question. So people, many people try to give 10%, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, but let's, for our discussion, we would speak about 10%. So they try to give 10%, I have interpreted, thank you, 10% of their income for charity. And many times the question is, so what ends am I allowed to give for? Or should I give for? Only to charity in the most strict sense? Can I give it to yeshivot? Can I give it to the shul? Can I pay my shul membership from my master? All these questions are questions that are being asked, and are being asked for many years. And that's one of the interesting answers in this topic in general, and in the Sefer I thought specifically. His style is longish, so he's writing lengthy answers. I cut it to the parts I thought that would be the most essential, so for us to understand the tshuva, and for us to be able also to maybe learn, as I said, something about Elul. So I didn't want all of our session to be taken by this tshuva. And also he's going into the details of analyzing the different opinions, which again I thought not necessarily is appropriate for the nature of our shiur. So all said, that's one of the shortest answers in the book, and we would read only about 1/3 of it. כבוד אהובי רב חביבי, הרב המאוה הגדול, החכם ובקי, עוקר הרים וכולי. So these are all the honorific titles that he gave to the person he is writing his answers to. מורי ורבי, הרב גרשון, נרו יאיר, ליטש, ראזינבוים. So that's the Yiddish spelling for what we call the ראזינבוים. But ראזינבוים, הלוי. אשר בדק לן כבוד תורתו. So it seems that he was a Rav also. So as happened many times, the great rabbis would mostly be asked not by their balei batim, but by other rabbis. If you'd open, for example, a very famous example, you'd open the Igrot Moshe by Moshe Feinstein, you will see, I don't know to give you percentage, but I would imagine that well above 50% are not answers that he gave to balei batim in his community, but to rabbis from all over North America and beyond, who were sending their questions to him. So if I am a small rabbi in a wonderful community, but a small community, and someone comes to me with a question, and the question I feel is above my pay grade, it's beyond my abilities, so what would I do? I would either phone call or send a letter to Reb Moshe Feinstein, and he would write me a response, and his response would enter into the Igrot Moshe. So that's one example. The Igrot Moshe is very famous for being Rav Rabbanim, a Rav of the rabbis. But he was not the only one. That's a very common practice for many, many generations. So also the Pri Yitzchak, some of his tshuvot would be written not to his common balebatim in the shul, but to other rabbis. That's a fine example. So that's a Rav. בעניין אשר נשאל מאיש הולך תמים. So again, this rabbi is sending to the Pri Yitzchak, to Rav Yitzchak Blazer, he himself was asked for someone in his community who is הולך תמים. I mean, הולך תמים is both a compliment, but also, you may say, a remark about the learning level, maybe. So he's a הולך תמים, he's a simple man, which is a compliment, I think. You're saying about he's a simple, he's a complete man. But on the other hand, not necessarily very high learned. So he's הולך תמים, אשר נהג משנים קדמוניות להפריש מעשר מכל מה שמרוויח. So this simple man, he had a minhag, a custom, that he would always separate a tenth from his income and give to charity. A beautiful minhag, again, not something new, a very old minhag, based on the types that the Jews were used to give, and that's a Torah, mandatory mitzvah, while you are in Eretz Israel. So you have fruits. We read about this in our Parshat Shavua, in the beginning of the Parsha, that every 3 years, after you completed giving all of your tithes, you come to the Beit HaMikdash, and you have this special vidui masrot, like a report that you have to give, that everything was given according to the law. So that these are the types. This was the ancient income tax, if you would like. So some would go to the education ministries, that's the Levim. Some would go into the religious ministry, that would be the Beit HaMikdash. Some would go to revacha, social security, right? That would be what you give to the poor. So back then you didn't have so much of a strong central government. So everything was managed on the local level. So you would separate your tithes and give to the local Levite, would be usually the teacher, the local priest, that's the Kohen, and the local poor person. And that was the way things were going for many, many, many years. Because again, if you are a Jew living, I don't know, in Rome, Italy, so the central government is not supporting your school. You know, you live in the USA right now. The central government is in most of the states of the United States. Central government does not support your school, and you have to establish it, to fund it from your own money. So some of it coming from the parents, which is not a simple burden. But I don't know what the percentage are, but I would assume that in many schools they heavily rely on funds not only coming from the parents, but coming from the entire community. People give charity, and part of their charity is to the schools. I think I'm correct, right? Is to the
in South Africa.
Yeah, way more than what parents are paying. Okay, so that's and not only the schools. That's only one example. Also the shul are not only paid by the membership fee, but also by people that take their money into the hand into their pockets and they give money. And also, you know, the mikvah, everything in the end. So people are required at one level or other. Is it a deoraita? Is it a derabanan? Is it a minhag? We can discuss that, but he discusses that. I would not go right now into discussion, which is an important discussion. It's clear to everyone that some things have to be paid from the pocket of the people, and the minhag usually was, if you're extremely rich, people gave much more than 10%. But your regular Jew would give 10% of his income. Beautiful. So, that was his minhag also. ועתה אין פרנסתו ברווח כל כך כמקדם. But unfortunately, he had lost his income, is not as wealthy as he used to be. So again, that's a very common question. I was asked that here in our community. People that used to give a tenth, a maaser, and they hit on hard times. Someone was fired, the business is failing. You know, there is endless reasons why someone can find himself in between the rock, right, as they say, the rock and the hard place. Exactly. So there can be endless reasons. It may be a health situation. So right now, he is not as wealthy as he used to be. More than that, האיש הנ"ל מגדל כל בניו על התורה. He is paying tuitions. And we may think that tuitions is a modern problem. It's not a modern problem. It was always a problem. And people, there are many, many stories about people, I can't remember right now, it's a very famous gadol, that his father had dismantled his winter oven and sold the bricks in order to pay the tuition for the teacher, so his child would be able to learn. So they would see the whole winter freezing. And then we speak about Eastern Russia, we don't speak about Talmud. In order for him to be able to give proper education to his son. And that's how life was lived. So that's the question. So he is paying tuitions for all of his children. It doesn't say what number of children he had, but kol banav, it seems that he had more than two. So he's paying heavy tuitions. על כן בא בשאלה, האם מותר לו לשלם ממעות מעשר שיהיה מפריש מהיום והלאה, להמלמד תורה עם בנו, אשר הוא כעת בן ט"ו שנים. So his son is right now 15 years old, which is in that time not so young anymore. Many, many boys, especially from poor families, at the age of 13, but even earlier, would leave. It wasn't even school, many times it was private teachers. So you'd hire a private melamed for your son from age, let's say 5 to age 8. He can read, more or less, he can read, write is more difficult. Let's say that he can even write in Hebrew. He can read the Siddur, which is the most important thing, so he can join the Tefillah. Gemara page is much beyond your average abilities. Let's say that he's able to sit in a Mishnah, in a Shas Fevre Mishnah Yochir. That's a good level. That's a good level. So he's able to sit in a Mishnah Fevre Shiur, and that's it. Now he has to go and work to make a living. He needs to support the family. So, but this man came from a more rich background, so he had in mind that his children needs to learn for an older age. Maybe also they were more gifted, it doesn't say. So the child is already 15, maybe he's sending him to some yeshiva, and he needs to pay money as a private teacher, he says here. He needs to pay money. It's very expensive. It's very expensive. So the question is, can you use your maaser, this tenth that you separate from your income, to this goal? Or you must give it to poor men, to anim, and that's it, and figure some different way. Now again, that's a very common question. Also now, I mean, it's not so common because it was given an answer, but it's a common theme, because people, young parents would come. Again, I'm speaking more in North America, but I don't have to tell you, most of you know more than I do, that there are committees, social committees. Every school has one, and people come, and sometimes we speak about people that earn very nice sums, hefty sums even, I would say. And they would come to this committees, and they would say, we only earn, $150,000 a year between the both of us, and they would be given a subsidy, which is, it's an amazing sum. But I saw it in Toronto, and that was 10 years ago, and I would assume that it is only becoming more and more difficult. So even parents that earn, I think it's a very nice amount, they would be given a sum. Why? Because they pay mortgage, because, I don't have to tell you again. So that's how life are lived. And now there is a question. There is something ridiculous in you relying on this committee, which obviously is being subsidized by the community, and from the other pocket, so you are pocketing in money it's tzedakah money basically, from the community, and on the other hand, you are giving tzedakah from your maaser. Wouldn't it make more sense that you'd pay with your maaser to the school? That's basically the question. So let's see. The Rav that sent the question to the Pri Yitzchak כבוד תורתו העריך בזה וכתב, ולא מצא היתר לזה. So the Rav asking Rav Yitzchak Blazer is sending the question, and because he's also a Rav, so he had a whole discussion by himself, and his conclusion was that the father is not allowed to pay from his Maaser money to support his child's learning. So either that he would send his child to work, or I don't know, may find some other solution. But basically, the Maaser must go to tzedakah. They cannot go to support your own children.
And you support somebody else.
So maybe you'd have a mutual support agreement. It's an interesting question. He didn't raise it here. He didn't raise it here. But Rav Yitzchak Blazer would immediately say that we do not need this. It's an ingenious idea. But he would say ingenious is a good word, right? It's a genius. So he said. You don't need that. אין כאן מקום להאריך בזה. He says, I'm going to write shortly. It's one of the shortest answers in the sefer. So, but it's long. אין כאן מקום להאריך בזה, ואומר אני רק הנראה לעניות דעתי בקצרה. So he says, I would only say my own דעתי, עניות דעתי, it's short. אין מקום להחמיר כלל בזה. There is no reason why you need to be strict on that. As far as I know, that's also the instruction in North America as of now, meaning that people are being told that they are allowed to use their Maaser if needed. Obviously, if not needed, not needed. But if needed, they are allowed to use their Maaser in order to pay the tuitions. He says, אין מקום להחמיר כלל בזה. There is no need or reason to be strict. ומותר לכתחילה לשלם שכר המלמד ממעות מעשר. You are allowed to pay your teacher from the money of the מעשר, כיוון דדחיקה לשעת הטובה, because the time for you are hard. Again, if you are someone rich, and you live in luxuries, and you go every year to a vacation in Mexico, and then you, instead of paying the school from your excess money, you pay it from the Maaser instead of giving to the poor. That's obviously a problem. Now again, what is going on in the shetach, as they say, I would leave it to you. But basically, if you are taking your vacations and you are driving a luxury car and you are living in a private home, and then the only thing you are going cheap on is that you are paying your tuitions with your Maaser, that's something that we need to think about. But if you do indeed live and you have hardships, then you are allowed to pay your tuition from your Maaser. והנה בדרכי משה. Now he begins the halachic analysis. So that's, you see that he is not writing, I mean, if I would have written this tshuva, I wouldn't begin with the conclusion, because beginning with the conclusion is like taking the mystery out of the process. But okay, fine. Is obviously that's the genre of the response is not necessarily in order to keep you suspense. So now begins the analysis. והנה בדרכי משה כתב בשם ההרים וזה לשונו, אותם בני אדם הנותנים מעשר שלהם לנרות בית הכנסת שלא כדין הם עושים. והמאיסר שייך לענות בו עניים. So the Rema brings from the Maharil that you are not allowed to give candles to the shul. Nowadays we would say to pay your membership fee. Right? So candles are electricity. So you're not allowed to pay your electricity for the shul. You're not allowed to pay your shul fee from the Maaser. Why? Because these are two separate things. You need the shul operating, paid from your own money. The Maaser should go to really poor people. That's the tshuva given by the Maharil. וכן הוא בהגות שולחן ערוך בסימן הנ"ל, דאין לעשות מעשר שלו דבר מצווה, רק יתננו לעניים. You are not allowed to do mitzvot from your Maaser. That's what the Rema says. The only thing you are allowed to do is to give to the poor. ולמדריש הכתב, שם תשובת הרב רבי מנחם, שכל מצווה שתבוא לידו, כגון להיות בעל ברית, להכניס חתן וכלה לחופה, לקנות ספרים ללמוד בהם, אם לא היה יכולת בידו ולא היה עושה אותה מצווה, יכול לקנות מן המעשר עד כאן. There is another opinion, so that was the opinion of the Maharil. There is another opinion by a certain Rabbi Menachem, who holds that any mitzvah that if you would not be allowed to use the master for, you would not be able to do, you are allowed to do from the maasrot. So again, if let's say that you have a brit, Baruch Hashem, but you don't have the money for the sudat brit, you are allowed to use the money of the maaser for your own seuda brit. Right, brit seuda. Yeah, seuda brit. Right, you are allowed to use the maaser. Now again, according to the Rema, no such thing. You must give it to the anim. Now here I have to make a comment. For us, the discussion is somewhat strange. If I don't have money to do seuda for my brit, obviously I am an ani. Obviously I am poor, so I can give the money to myself, right? But we live in a very different world than what they lived in. Not having money to do a seuda, that's the average Jew. You would give a lekech, right, a cake and some liquor, and that would be it. Who has money? No one has money. No one has money. So it's the regular people who do a very, very simple meal for a mitzvah seuda for the bit. Maybe you can close the door. So again, people would not collect tzedakah for us. For us, collecting tzedakah for a brit. Wow, you are such you're so downtrodden. Now we need to collect tzedakah even to make your own brit. We'd give, happily. But again, back then, people did not have the money. That was a regular thing, and no one would dream to collect money so we'd be able to buy an apartment for his son or daughter, which nowadays is very common. And people, they are not shy. I would get phone calls, and they would say, "Yeah, we want this, we want that, we want." Yeah, okay.
So like their shul, like another shul. They're coming.
Or for a shul, or for yeah, I want to build. Yeah, exactly. So again, back then, tzedakah would not be to shul and not be to school and won't be there. It would be given to people that really they cannot buy their Shabbat needs. We do not speak here about weddings. We're not speaking about Brit. We speak about Shabbat needs. That's what we speak here about. These are poor people. So again, our musagim, right, our terms are so different. It's the whole question is strange for us. If you cannot pay your tuition, you are poor. But maybe in North America, you can understand the difference. You can be not poor at all. Right? If you look, again, when I saw that, I was out of my mind. And I saw that they say, if you earn less than $150,000 a year, come to the committee and we can arrange. You earn more than 100. I don't see a reason why, but this is not the reality.
One of the prime things, even tuition.
No question about it.
So,
now, I would ask you, what is the average income, not only of Jews, of everyone in the United States? I think most of the people would dream about earning such sum. And here you speak about this type of people having to come to a social committee in order to rely on charity money. So the whole thing, our terms are very, very, very different than theirs. But we have to go back to their terms. So by their terms, you should give money to the poor. The poor is the person living in a cardboard on the street, let's say. Right? He's struggling just to feed his children. And you want to take the money and make a nice seuda for your brit. That's the question. Are you allowed to take the money for a seuda for your brit? Or do you need to give it to the guy in the street? Or not necessarily in the street, but in the wreck at the end of the street. So the Maharil says, give it to the poor. And Rabbeinu Menachem says, you are allowed to use it for your own mitzvot. It could be a brit. Maybe you need a shas. You don't have Gemara in your house. Many people didn't have. Again, for us, very simple. But for them, extremely expensive. Extremely. Even before print, I don't speak even. Many communities didn't have Talmud. But let's speak after printing. So on the central shul of the city, you would have a Talmud Bavli, hopefully. But every person in his home, extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. So most people would not know how to use it. But even let's say that you know how to use it, you need to have the money in order to buy it. by the way, it's a different set of skills to be able to earn enough money to buy and to know how to learn. So not necessarily it would be the same population that we be able to do both. But again, but you know how to learn. You want Gemara at your house. You want your children to be able to learn Gemara. So you want to buy Gemara. But you lack the funds. Can you use the Maaser money? So again, for us, obviously, if you're not able to take a few hundred shekels and buy a Talmud Bavli, you are poor and you can use your Maaser, no question at all. But for them, no, that's not the situation. So that's a מחלוקת. That's a מחלוקת. והביאו גם הטס והשח, והנה המהריל ורבי מנחם בוודאי פליגי. So obviously there is a dispute here, a מחלוקת. והנה הדין שכתב המהריל מצאתי מפורש בשו"ת מהר"ם מרוטנבורג, וזה לשונו, מעות מעשר יראה, אחר שהחזיקו בו לתיתם לעניים, אין לשנות למצווה אחרת. זה נראה כגוזל לעניים. Rav Yitzchak Blazer says, the source of the Maharil is from the Maharam Rotenburg. The Maharam Rotenburg is a 13th century Ashkenazi, the Gdol Ador in Ashkenaz in 13th century. We spoke about him, I guess, 2 years ago. He was jailed by the local emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which, as we said a few times, it was not an empire, it was not Roman, and definitely not holy. Yeah, so the emperor of this entity has jailed the Maharam Rotenburg, and the Maharam Rotenburg refused to be released by charity money. So it's very interesting, his relations to charity money. So the Maharam Rotenburg also said you are not allowed to use charity for any other goal but giving to the poor. Why? Because when you separate that money, you already designated it for the poor. And now taking it for any other reason, that is like stealing from them. It's already theirs, in a sense. In the minute it was separated. So it's already theirs. You're not allowed to take it for your own purpose. And it says, although it's only a custom, it's a minhag. And that is the common accepted opinion. It's not a deoraita to give 1/10 of your salary. From the tree, it is. But from your salary, from your income, from your business, it's not a mitzvah deoraita. It's not even an obligation derabbanan. It's a chashuv minhag. It's a very ancient minhag, but it's a minhag. Nonetheless, although many times we are more lenient when we come to minhagim, nonetheless, because this minhag is like already being given to the poor, you are not allowed now to take it from the poor and use it for your purposes, be them as noble as they may. That was the opinion of the Maharam Rotenburg, and he says, מכיוון שכדברי המהריל מפורש גם למהר"ג מרוטנבורג, אם כן פשיטא דאחי קיימא, he says because the words of the Maharil are being held by such an authority as the Maharam of Rotenburg, then this is simple, the hachi kaimalan. Simple, that's how we should hold lehalacha, meaning that you are not allowed to use the maaser for any other use but the poor, and you're not allowed to be lenient according to Rabbeinu Menachem. So I just finished the first pista, how do you say, the first paragraph, thank you. Ulam, you see, I'm now in the second paragraph beginning with ulam. So up till now, it seems the conclusion is as the Rav detests him. He is not allowed to use the money of charity for his own children, to educate them. Ulam kol ze, now he begins the second move of the tshuva. Kol ze uleshar dvar mitzvah. Everything that we spoke up till now is for other mitzvot, as neirot lebet hakneset, as we said, the shul membership fee. אבל לשלם שכר למלמד תורה עם בנו, פיתא דמותר לכולי עלמא. But he says, teaching Torah to your child is different. Of course, you have to explain that. Why is it different? Is then the shul not less important? Why school, why tuitions are more important than any other mitzvah? And he explains, the Abeshut Maharam Rotenburg, he brings again the same Maharam of Rotenburg, כתב בהדיא, he says explicitly, ולפזר מעשרותיו לבניו הגדולים, שאינו חייב לטפל בהם, מותר. It says, giving your Maaser. To your older children, we'd speak about what is older, but to your older children, he says, if you would have wanted, you could send them to earn their own money, right? So they are their own personality now. If they are their own personality, you already see where is it going to. They are very poor. My 15 years old son, 13 years old son, halachically, I am allowed just to send him to work. I am supporting him. This is tzedakah. This is charity. Now, you may say it's a very good reason, charity. By the way, because the laws of the state now is that I must support him up to the age of 18, that may change the halachic analysis here. That may change. Truthfully, I'm not sure about that. To what age must I support him? Is it 18 according to the law? I'm not sure. I think Chok Chinuch Chova, is it up to I know what? I take back my words because I didn't check before. I don't know what the Israeli law says. My intentions are to support him. I don't know what the law be it for the record, as they say. But I don't know what the law specifically says. I would imagine that the law require me to support him at least up to something like that, I mean 15, 16, 17, 18. So that may change the tshuva that he gives. But he's speaking about Russia. In Russia, obviously according to the Russian law, but also according to halacha, after age, which is 6, you can send him to work. You can send him to work. So that means that everything I'm doing from now on is tzedakah, it's charity. It may be that I must do this tzedakah, but it's tzedakah. And that's therefore, then he says another amazing thing. אפילו לאביו מותר לתת אם הוא עני, לולי משום כבוד אביו. Says, let's imagine another question. Let's say that someone has a father, that the father is poor, and he needs to support. That's a very common question. Many people do not have the right pension, or for any other reason, they have a very acute health situation, and they are supported by the children. That's again, a commonplace. Now, there is, according to halacha, obviously you must respect kavod of your father and mother. However, it says in the halacha that you only need to give them from their own. You don't need to use your own money to support me. Again, I'm thinking about the bare minimum halachic requirements. Is that I would be very ashamed if one of my community would throw his father to the street, because that's simple. But basically, you are only supposed to use his money and not your own money. They say there is a beautiful story about Reb Chaim of Brisk, that someone came to him and said to Reb Chaim of Brisk, you know, my father lives very far. I must buy a ticket to the train, and I don't want to use my money in order to be mechabed him, so I am exempt. So says Reb Chaim, you're right, you're exempt for buying the ticket, so please walk by foot. But so basic halacha that you're not supposed to, you are supposed, but you're not obligated to use your own money. So according to the basic law, you are allowed to use your maaser to support your parents. But Maharam Rothenburg says, don't do that. That is disrespectful. That you are calling your parent an ani, and you use your maaser. Although you are not obligated, you should use your own money and give the maaser to someone else that is poor. So that's interesting. But that is for your parents, because this is disrespectful. There is no mitzvah. I hope that I'm not sinning with my tongue right now, but there is no mitzvah to respect kavod. But again, obviously you should be mechabed your children in a sense, but it's not like kibud urim, right? You understand? So
just like semantics, because you're helping your parents,
but you're not calling it maaser. You're not saying that is my anim. That is the mitzvah I do. I mean, I'm giving my parents a maaser. That's the maaser I give. That's disrespectful, because maaserot is for someone else. For your parents, give from your own. That's again. These are, I think, simple intuitions that you all have. Now, according to that, to your children, there is no such no such an element of being disrespectful by paying it from your maaserot. So again, the conclusion should be that you are allowed to use your maaserot in order to support your children, and obviously part of supporting them is paying their tuitions. And according to that, נראה מה שכתב לבניו הגדולים, היינו יתרים על 6. So older, as I said, older than 6 years old, younger than 6 years old, you are obligated to support them. So you cannot use your maaser. But if they are older than 6 years old, you are not obligated to support them. You are supposed to, but you're not obligated to. And thus you can use the money of maaser. And he says, when we see, I'm skipping to the third paragraph, ואחר שנתברר דמותר לפרנס בניו שהם יתרים על 6 ממעשר, you are allowed to support your children which are older than 6 from your מעשרות, ודלא כעתה, אז he brought some other posted that disagreed, but he rejects him, אם כן נראה, so it seems, therefore, ומכל שכן שמותר לתת ממעות מעשר, לשכר לימוד לבנו כבן ט"ו שנים. So he says, obviously you are allowed to use your money, your מעשרות, to pay for tuition. I skip to the end of the paragraph because he has another argument. The last line, before the last line, שהמורה לצדקה הוא עני, ודחיק על אישה אתה. He says the teacher is also poor. A part of everything we just spoke about, of supporting your child, the truth is you are also supporting the teacher, and that's part of life. It's reflecting the life in Eastern Russia, which was a big problem, and that was that melamed, the teachers of the children, were almost at the end of the ladder, economically speaking. And that caused very, very difficult problems with the chinuch in Eastern Europe, because you can understand that if the people that are supposed to be responsible for the education of your children are being paid the less in society, that would not necessarily attract the best and the most skilled. Many times, people that were not able to do anything else became the teachers and the tutors for the next generation, and that you can understand what happened. So violence was rampant. I mean, they were beating everywhere. Maybe some of you heard it from your parents or from your grandparents. That's something that was very common in the Hadarim in Eastern Europe. That was me again. I cannot generalize completely. Obviously, there were also good teachers and good rabbeim, but many, many times because they were not good at their job. So what do you digress to when you're not able to make the child interested in what you teach? You just beat, right, everything out of him, and that's it. And then he would, I don't know if he would learn anything, but at least he would not interrupt you. Many times, these teachers would also do another work because they were paid so little, so they would teach, and they would also, I don't know, in the meantime, they would make matzah. Many things. So that was just the whole thing. The whole operation was very bad. But I already told, I think you in the last few shiurim, everyone understood that a reform is needed in education. Everyone, from the greatest rabbi to the last of the maskilim. The problem was that every move to the direction of the reform was immediately taken by the reform, but now I speak about the reform, the capital R, by the reform movement to create a revolution in Yahadut and in education. So the rabbi said, we cannot give an inch, because if we give an inch, then everything would be lost. And that was a tragedy that basically was not solved till the Holocaust. I mean, again, I'm generalizing, but in Russia, it was not solved. In Poland, because it was democratized between the wars, then between the wars, there was a much better education situation in Poland. But in Russia, basically, it was not solved up till the Russian Revolution, and then everything was closed down, and then the Nazis came, and basically, as you know, the situation in Russia in Jewish education for the last 80 years, 100 years, was not good. Just not good. And I think I'm using mild language. So that's that's the situation that we speak about. So the teacher is also poor, and out of all of these considerations, the conclusion is if you hit hard times, you are allowed to use your master money for tuition. As I said, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not a posek there, but to the best of my knowledge, that is also the regular psika in North America, and that is that people are allowed to use their master money to pay their tuitions. And but nonetheless, as I said, if you have to earn more than $200,000 a year for a family in order to pay your tuitions fully, then obviously it's Maaser is not going to to cut it through. These are sums that are much higher.
Look, average income in Canada, 65,000.
65,000. So that's for one person. So let's say for a household.
Family.
So I guess that in the Jewish community, $60,000 would be, I don't know, a beggar. Basically, that's what it means. That's what it means.
We in TNET, the way they do it, first you pay your tuition and then you deduct Maaser.
And then you deduct Maaser.
That's what they told people to do. But people weren't actually taking off the Maaser, because they needed for tuition. So okay, first take off your tuition, then you got.
From what is left, if something is left.
Your net is that what you take off.
That's what the rabbi said in South Africa.
Okay, very interesting.
They said first you pay your income tax and your school tuition or whatever, and then from what's left, you work 10% of that. I mean,
So, by the way, that is basically for most of the people, that basically means pay your tuition through your master, because what is left after you have extracted all of that is very little.
That's what the rabbis say.
I understand, but I'm just saying, so it's more elegant solution, because then people still separate master. They feel that they give to Zakat. So it's a more elegant solution. But money-wise, I don't think there is a big difference. I don't think there is a big difference. Okay, so that's the answer I wanted to learn with you. Now I want to continue to the to the other side of the page. Go to the other side of the page. Now that was the halacha. Now I want to move to hashkafa, to Mussar. And this is his Mussar. That was printed. Rabbi Belaizer printed the Sefer, the book of his greatest Rebbe, the Rabbi Israel Salanter. Rabbi Israel Salanter himself did not print a book, and his different articles and pieces and teachings were collected by Rav Yitzchak Belaizer, and he printed it as a book. And he added as an appendix some of his own thoughts. So we would now learn one of the letters that he appended to the book of his Rebbe, and that's called, this part called Or. The Sefer itself called Or Israel, called for Israel Salanter, and his own thoughts were printed under the part titled Or, I guess stars of light, light stars. So he speaks about the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara, the Mishnah there says a very interesting thing. I would say some of it orally, because I see that our time begins to be shorter. So the Mishnah says that on Rosh Hashanah, we all know the say it in the Tefillah, on Rosh Hashanah, Kol Ba'ei Olam, all the creatures of the world, Ovrim Lefanav Kivnei Maron. They passed in front of God as Bnei Maron. Now, what exactly is the explanation of the term Bnei Maron? In the Gemara, there are different explanations. So it may be sheep that the herd, right, that the shepherd is counting them. So they go one by one. It may be soldiers that are stepping, like marching. Again, but there is some general standing up front, right? And then the army is marching next to him. So that is Bnei Maron. Now, according to some of the explanations, the element that is being stressed is that they are going one after the other, one after the other. And what Rabbi Yitzchak Belaizer is asking himself is, why is it important to tell us that there is one that is earlier and one that is later? I mean, obviously God can do multitasking. So men cannot, but women can. So I guess that Hashem can also. So I would say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can love everyone at the same time. Why does it need to be one after the other? That's an interesting question. So he explains the following. I'm in the fourth line. ובזאת ראשית דבר הוא ההכנה. It says, first you must understand that the most important, I don't know if the most, but the most basic thing is to prepare yourself for Rosh Hashanah. Prepare yourself, הכנה. כי יקדים לעצמו לעשות הכנה, you should prepare yourself. ahead of time, בעוד מועד, כמו שהוא בנוהג בעולם, as the practice in the world. כי מישהו נאחז בסבך איזה משפט, משל ענייני ממון, מה גם let's imagine that you are being called to court. You would not just wake up at the morning of the sentence and go to the court and say, here I am, judge me. Obviously, you'd begin to prepare yourself weeks and months in advance, and you'd hire a lawyer, and you see here that he was living in this big city of Petersburg with all the courts, right? So it's interesting. That's the example that he gives. So he says, you must prepare yourself. And if we speak about the judgment of man in the great day of judgment, Rosh Hashanah, in front of God, obviously you need to prepare yourself. So that's why we begin to blow the shofar from the 1st of Elul. And we begin to say slichot. He says there are those that begin slichot. It's interesting that he is familiar with the Sephardic minhag. He says there are those that begin to say, well, in Crimea, by the way, there were also Sephardic communities. I don't know if he met them or not, but so he says some begin to blow the shofar and to say slichot. Some begin to say slichot at the beginning of Elul, and we begin a week before. And he says, if the heart is as stone, nothing will wake it up. So you need to prepare yourself to water it, to soften it before Rosh Hashanah. So when time for tshuva would come, you will be prepared. You will be prepared. And I'm in the second paragraph. ההכנה הזאת מה שהאדם מקדים את עצמו. So this preparation that we need to advance before Rosh Hashanah, to prepare ourselves, לדאוג ימים רבים, many days we should worry before the coming of the day of judgment. So heart would be softened, and our spirit would surrender, and we would enter ourselves the fear and the awe of judgment. They must make some remark, לעשות איזה רושם בנפשנו. Again, if you just say the words and nothing comes out of it, that's not preparing, and that's not being prepared for Rosh Hashanah. And we should try to לעסוק בכישרון המעשה. We should ready our actions and בקשת רחמים and ask for mercy. אף אם לא יספיק להכריע כף הזכויות על העוונות, יש בכוחה לעורר רחמים. He says, even if it's too late for us now to be more righteous than חס וחלילה, than evildoers, at least maybe we can awaken some mercy. You see, he's a Mussarnik, right? He's a Mussarnik. A regular mitnaged would not speak that way, or a chassid would not speak that way. They would speak about tshuva, bettering ourselves. He's a Mussarnik. He says, you should know, you are wicked. So, what I mean is, every small thing is an avera. Every small thing is an avera. And so, of course, we need to keep ourselves as best as we can. But know that to begin with, mi itzdak lefanecha badin. No one can come out righteous for the judgment. So what we should work on is not only on bettering ourselves, that's the basic element. We must also work on waking the mercy of Hashem by our tefillot, by breaking our heart, by being merciful on others. These are the ways by which you can draw mercy upon yourself. So he says, there is no other way. If you just forget yourself, ויסיח דעתו בכל החודש, in all of Elul, you think about other things, הוא בעצמו לא יחוש ולא ידאג כלל מפני יום הדין, you would not fear and not be worried about the day of judgment, then when would come the time להיפקד כל רוח ונפש, when time would come for being judged, every soul and every spirit, there would חס וחלילה be no room for mercy. So we must prepare ourselves to draw mercy to begin with. And then he explains, וזה מה שאמרו חז"ל כבני מרון, that they go one by one. What does it is? That minhag ha'olam, the custom of the world is, when many people come in, and he says, like Beit HaNetivot, train station. if you come early, there is a line, not in Israel, everyone, but in Russia. So they stand in line. And if you came early, you would be first in line. And you came late, you would be last in line. So he says, if you begin your preparation early enough, then you have more chances to embark the train of mercy. But if you are there at the end, because you only on Erev Rosh Hashanah, you woke up and you say, oh, it's Rosh Hashanah tomorrow, and there is no time for anything. So you only prepare the meal, you only prepare what your stomach needs, but no preparation for the heart, and no preparation for the mind, and no preparation for the soul. Then you are less in line with everything that comes with that. So he says we must begin to prepare ourselves. So I'm in the next paragraph. ולזאת, אף המקדים והמאחר בייחוס מצבם יהיו מעשיהם שקולים. Even if we would take, let's say, 2 people stand in line, and we have, I don't know, 500 tickets. So if you have more money, even if you are last in line, maybe you'll be able to advance yourself. But if both are equal, we just give the tickets by your position in line. So if you are such a righteous person that you rely on your good deeds to move you through Judgment Day, then all the luck to you. You're fine. You don't have to prepare yourself through Elul, says Rav Yitzchak. However, if you are worried that you do not have enough money and you need to win the lottery and you want to have the mercy of Hashem, better be sure that you are one of the first in line. Begin to prepare yourself from now, says Rav Yitzchak to ourselves. Just if you don't have enough money, you are going to buy economy cards in the train station. So if your first department, it's called the first class, if you're first, always there would be room for you. If there would be no room, the train station company would make sure there is room. For first class passengers, there is always room. But so same thing, lehavdil is in heaven. If you're a first class passenger, don't be in this shoe. Then you don't need a preparation. However, if you're not first class passenger, if you are as me, if you are in, how would they call it, economy B? So yeah, and no, there is economy A and there is economy B. So you're in economy B, I'm in economy B. I'm in the place where, you put your feet on your head. So if that's where you are, better be fair, because there are many people to this car and they do not add cars. So better be first and better prepare yourself to begin. So he says, even if everything other is equal, if you begin to prepare earlier, you have better chances of being judged favorably. If you are less in line, even if everything else is equal, that's in itself not even bothering yourself to prepare. That's in itself an avera. That's in itself a mistreatment, a show of disrespect that would cause you, chas v'chalila, maybe not to be judged as you want in Rosh Hashanah. And he says, הנה כסיים, in the last sentence, הנה כסדר הזה יעברו לפניו כל באי עולם זה אחר זה. So this is the order in which every creature in the world would come before Hashem, one after the, not everyone at the same time, as the line in the train station, one after the other. And if you came early, you'd pass early. And according to the earlier of the time of preparation of standing before דין, before the throne of judgment, כן יעברו גם כן ראשון. Obviously he's hinting here to the slichot, מעביר ראשון. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is passing the first scene he is willing to ignore. If you are repeating the scene again and again, he does not ignore. But ראשון can pass. So be sure to be there. ראשון, זה נושא המשל של בני מרון כבעלות בית מירון, and that is the theme, that is the description of going like soldiers or going like herd in front of the shepherd. I think that's it's showing the strength. We didn't even read the whole thing, but it's showing the strength of his moral talk. So I can only imagine being when he speaks about these topics. So obviously we try to take as much as we can. We are already beyond the middle of Elul. So time is really big. We begin Slichot B'ez Hashem next Motzi Shabbos. So time is really, really ticking, and it's time for all of us to wake up and, as they say, smell the coffee, right? Wake up and begin to prepare ourselves for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and may we all have a Shana Tova. We have another shiur before Rosh Hashanah, but I am already allowed to say, may we all merit a Shana Tova Metuka.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.